Ladies and hookuppers, Andy here, day 249 of the Inner Winner Show. This is a very strange episode. So, I was going to have a woman on my podcast, a woman by the name of Georgie Wolf, who has her own podcast called The Art of the Hookup. She also wrote a book by the same title. She's an escort, very interesting person, right? And I was going to have her on the episode, and we mixed up like the link for the call. Basically, we were going to reschedule, right? We only had a little bit of time to talk, and we ended up just like not shutting the hell up for like 45 minutes of just like what I think you guys will say is like really, really fascinating content, because it's basically what I discovered by this like weird impromptu chat that I have. And I've asked her permission to use this as a podcast episode, even though it's not a proper episode. It's just us kind of rambling at each other. She's like a copy paste of, I swear to God, it's like someone took my brain and just put it in somebody else's body. Like so many of the points that I have and my philosophies and the ideas that I've come to, she's just like absolutely on board with. And I think you guys are going to get a lot out of this interview. I say interview, it wasn't really an interview, this weird half podcast, half talk that we did. I'm going to sit down with her properly in a couple of days, and I'm going on her podcast, and she's also going to come back on mine and do a proper interview. I know a lot of you guys asked a bunch of questions. I told you preemptively that she was coming on the show. A lot of you asked a bunch of questions about like, what's it like being an escort? Like, do you have any interesting stories? Do you have any horror stories? Like, what do you do if a guy, I don't know, breaks down in the middle of it and starts crying or can't get it up or blah, blah, blah. So she's happy to answer those. I'll do an interview with her in a couple of days when I next have her on. But I think you guys are going to like this interview, if nothing else, but for the fact that it really is like someone just took my philosophy and put it in someone else. It's like, this is basically 45 minutes of us yelling at each other. Oh my God, you're my best friend. I can't believe you literally think exactly the same way as me. So I think you guys can enjoy it. It was a lot of fun, even though it wasn't actually meant to happen. We weren't really going to upload this, but we got to the end and I was like, hey, is it okay if I use this? Because this is actually interesting. So I think you guys will like it. I'll stop talking. Enjoy. I should save this for the podcast, but whatever. I'll tell you right now. I mentioned to my audience, like, oh, hey, this chick like Georgie Wolf is coming on. Like, here's her book. And like, seriously, I have right here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people asked me questions because they were like, wait, she's an escort? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, holy shit. And there's like too many questions here. Like, they were so interested. They were like, oh my God. Yeah, no, seriously. They were like, wait. She still does it? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, holy shit. Like, and there's so many questions that they asked that you had done podcasts on as well. Like there was a couple of guys of like, well, what happens if a guy can't get it up? And I was like, you literally did a podcast called like, I love guys that can't get it up. And I was like,
this is why I like your stuff, because you talk about this stuff as well.
Yeah, that's why I was like crazy excited. I was like, oh my God, like someone who's not going to be like puritanical and like weird about sex and just wants to like talk about it and like it's a normal thing.
And I was like, oh my God, a pickup artist that isn't shit.
I hate that word pickup artist. I really hate that
yeah,
word.
me too. And like I'm coming more from like the sex positive crew side of things, where things are a lot more virtue. They get a bit more virtue signaling. You have to be careful about your language and shit. But really, that's not the people I'm looking for. The people I'm looking for are your people, the ones that are like, oh fuck, I couldn't get hard, and now I'm stressed and crying, and I don't know what to do. And she's gone to the bathroom. Like it's all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So like you're really hitting like the stuff you're talking about is fucking awesome.
Yeah, and like your stuff too. That's why I was like exactly the same as you talked about. You were like sex positive, like, and I was like, okay, I'm like, because normally when I hear that, I'm thinking like, okay, it's going to be like this big long like list of like rules and stuff. And like, I know that Imogen said like the consent thing. You mentioned that. We can get into that like on the podcast, or we can talk about it before if you want to, like that stuff. Because like, I've done a couple of podcasts now, like on other people's podcasts. I go on their podcast, and like we start off where I've had this conversation about consent as well, where they're like, oh, like, I don't know if I disagree with you or not. And then like we get into it. And then by the end, you're like, okay, I think we like completely, And then like, I agree with them. They agree with me. Like,
I emailed Imogen when I'd only listened to a couple of your podcasts, and because your language is like super like regular person language, I was like, oh no, I don't know. This might be bad. And then I listened to a few more and went, no, he's in the right place. Like this is good stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it's that. I think people are expecting that super sanctimonious language, and if they don't get it, they assume that you're a shit person, and that sucks. So apologies for that.
No. Yeah. No, it's more like, from my point of view, because I've had a couple of people that would just like go the exact opposite and say like, oh, if you're encouraged, like, I'm sure you get the same freaking thing. You must. Why are we doing the podcast right now? What the hell are we doing? Like, Why are we
It's
talking
all right. We
about
can rehash. We can rehash.
fine,
It's
fine.
okay.
But like, so many people will come and say like, oh, if you want guys to have sex with girls, even if you're incredibly honest about it, and like, I don't tolerate anyone on my forums or anything who's like dishonest. I'm just like, hey, this isn't the community for you. Like, I'm sorry,
Doesn't
man.
work.
Like, that's
Just doesn't work.
it's too much drama and shit. But like, I will still get people that will like who just don't listen. Like maybe they'll watch one or two podcasts and they'll say like, "Oh, well, you want people to have sex? That's really shallow. Like you're using women." And I'm like, "Well, what if the girls want to be doing it? Like, do they not get
That's like people who
agency?"
say porn objectifies women, that it oppresses women. I'm like, fuck off.
That's the freaking point I was going to get to with your stuff. Like there are guys that say the same shit. I don't think there's anyone on my forums, and all the questions, like a bunch of people ask questions about like your job and you as a person, and they were all like
totally
very
down.
genuine.
Totally down.
They were like genuinely curious, like interested questions. But like there are other people who look at like, oh, she escorts, and they're like, oh my god, she's like using men and she's like preying on. It's like, oh my god, like what do you?
And then sometimes it goes the other way, like, oh, you must be so abused by men. I'm like, not for $500 an hour, my friend. That's not what abuse looks like.
Imogen gets that stuff from like, because like we're not like hardcore into BDSM, but we like play around with quite a bit of it, right? We're pretty kink friendly, and like she's had people literally say like I don't think it was her. No, it was her older sister who literally said like, when she and I had just been together for like 6 months or something, and she said like, you know, he's abusing you. Like BDSM is always abuse, and she's like, what do you mean? Like I consent to all. I like it. I want him to go harder. If anything, like he's the nicest, sweetest guy to me in the bed. Like, what do you mean? And she's just like, no, it doesn't matter how you do it. Like he's still hitting you. And she's like,
I'm
well,
so fucking tired of people telling women what they can and can't do with their own fucking bodies.
Thank you. Why are we doing this now? Okay, you have to promise.
I know. I'm sorry.
You have to promise me we rehash this stuff. Because like I get triggered. I've done podcasts on that. Like I've done where I get mad triggered. And I'm like, what you're saying, like when you think that you're being like a good feminist or like whatever you want to call it, you think that you're looking out for women. But basically you're saying is they're pieces of shit who can't make their own decisions. If that's your point of view, don't let them vote. Like why are you okay with them vote? We should just lock them up at home, and women can't make any choices, right? Because you're essentially saying they're too choices. Yeah, it's like they're too fucking stupid to know. Oh well, I don't like how this feels. What, they're too stupid to say like
to choose.
Yeah, it like
that
really shit triggers me so much. And not even. Yeah, you go.
Oh, there's a shit ton of people out there who call themselves feminists who are then just like, oh, but sex work isn't okay, you can't do that, or oh, but BDSM isn't okay, or fucking dudes isn't okay, you can't do that and be a feminist. I'm like, well,
you're too stupid to know that you're getting abused, and you're like, but I don't think I am. I've done a lot of soul searching. I've asked a lot of people. I've done a lot of questioning of like, do I want to do this? And I'm pretty happy. I like this. This is part of my values and my principles as a woman of what I want. I don't think I'm being abused. And they're like, no, you just don't know that you're being abused. And you're like, oh my God. Like,
but then of course you'll get the other end of the stick where it's like, you're a bad man, you're a bad guy.
Yeah, for sure.
For doing this stuff to people. And then, you know, some of my friends who are DOMs really struggle with this stuff, and they're like, I don't want to be a bad guy. Am I a bad guy? Is there something wrong with me? And then they really like, it really gets them down, and they have to do a lot of work around that. Like, I want to do this stuff to women, and they look like they're loving it. And if they weren't, I wouldn't. But am I abusive? Am I a shitty person?
Yeah. I mean, you get that with, I'm sure you must get that a hell of a lot with like being an escort, but you get that even just in open relationships and stuff, right? Like anything that's not normal.
I'm poly, so that's totally
you mentioned that. It's in one of your podcasts or your book or something, because I was going to talk to you about open relationships too.
Yeah, there's heaps of good stuff in there. Actually, I'm super keen to talk to both of you guys about your dynamic and how you guys pick up together, because you've talked about it on your podcasts too, and I think you both just be really good role models.
You asked some question, and we can get off here in a sec. We probably shouldn't talk for too long, because like I am just gonna like get really excited.
We'll burn through all the good stuff.
Yeah, I know. But okay, I don't have it here in front of me. You wrote those notes, which I was very fucking impressed by the way, because like,
oh sweet, brief.
Yeah, I was like, holy crap, this is so professional. Like, what the hell?
I try.
But
like
you mentioned
pre-warn people.
You mentioned something on there. I can't remember the wording you used, but it instantly triggered me in a good way. I was like, oh my God, like I want this to be the whole podcast. Like it was something like, how do you make sure, I'm going to paraphrase. It was like, how do you make sure the girls aren't just getting like used or something, or they're not just like throwaway, something like that. Or like couples privilege. Couples privilege. Why have I never heard that term before?
And you know, I try not to use the word privilege on my podcast. I try not to use the words like
no, but it is.
Politics.
You are in a privileged point of view.
It's couples privilege.
You are. Yeah.
Like how do
because
you
love each other.
Person?
Yeah.
And also you've got the power. Like there's two of you. There's one of them. Maybe they're less experienced.
I'm
Like, how
so
do you look
freaking glad
after
you
them?
talk about this stuff. We did an
But
interview.
again,
Yeah, no, you go.
sorry.
I keep talking over you.
Oh, again, I just
I'm
tend
too
not to use
excited.
the word privilege because it triggers some people to fuck. So
Yeah. No, I don't mind the word privilege. Like, maybe advantage isn't same thing. Whatever. I don't care. Like,
power, you know,
yeah. No, power is a good word. Like
power's a good
responsibility. I
word.
like using the word responsibility because I feel like power is like it doesn't really explain it. I like to have like a mentor, and I think most of my like people and audience and stuff, they kind of are on board with like what I talk about like mentoring people and like responsible, like helping other people
Using
grow
your
and that
power
kind
for
of shit.
good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so I like the word responsibility. But we did an interview. It's not out yet. It'll be out in a couple of days with one of the girls that we're sleeping with. It was like we did 3 interviews with her, like in a row. We talked for like 2 hours. And like that was one of the topics that we talked about where I was like, does it feel weird that you're like coming to a relationship and like we're already and you kind of have to just hope that we like don't get sick of you? Like, do you ever worry that we'll get bored of you or that we'll just throw you away or that like,
Yeah, because it happens.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. And like, how do you deal with that? Like, and we talked, it was funny. We actually like talked quite a bit about that. And she was like, to be honest, like, even though you guys have reassured me, I do sometimes kind of worry about like, oh, what if they get sick of me? And like, we were like, sweetie, like, you're really nice. Like, we like you a lot. Like, we want to keep seeing you for as long as you want. And it was kind of like a nice moment. We ended up the podcast on that. She was like, oh, and we just cut it right there. It was like really sweet. But like, yeah, that is something that comes up. Like, you have to have that conversation. And like, that was a mistake that we made the first couple of times. We just like went into it like, yeah, because it's like this new novel thing and you're just thinking of your own needs, which fair enough, fine. Like everyone is a bit selfish, but like you do want to, as quickly as you possibly can, ideally, like immediately if you can, like get to a point where you're thinking, hey, this is a person. Like this isn't just because too many guys, I know you said before that I'm really crass, whatever, I'll be really crass here. Too many guys like think of a girl. They think of like a girl in general as just like, she's a wet hole. Like she's a conquest. She's like,
and I'm like, dude, you ain't going to pick up that way. If you see a chick as a thing that you stick your dick in,
no,
fuck, man.
You will get laid, but like after you've done that 10 times, you'll go like, what the fuck have I just done? Like all of them didn't seem to have a good time. Most of them, like I'm sure you would figure, like I'm sure you know this. Like the more you are like that, the less girls stick around. Like
I've done it.
I feel like that goes without saying.
And it was bad. It was bad sex. I've used people really hardcore. I used to be a real asshole. And it's bad. It's bad sex. You know afterwards that you've hurt them.
You feel like an absolute asshole.
There's no connection. It's shitty.
Yeah. And you're like, how is this my life? And there are some guys, I know you talked about like pickup artists before. There are some guys that just do the pickup artist thing for like forever. Like they just keep doing that. There's a guy, I don't know if you know this guy called Roosh. Have you heard of that name? Like Roosh
do not get me started.
Do you know about how he had like a crisis and now he's like found God and stuff? Like, and he's deleted all
Jesus,
his
dude. I could have saved him from that.
Did you not know that? Like you should,
no,
like the reason I'm saying that is like he had a big breakdown. Like he legitimately deleted his whole website and he said like everything I've done before was a sin. Like I'm a horrible person. Like I can't advocate anyone doing this. And like he just had like
it got too heavy. Whereas what he should have done is, hey, I've just realized I've done some terrible stuff. Now I'm going to learn how to do sex properly because that's all you need to do. Just learn how to deal with other people as though they're human beings. But instead, he just went straight for the Jesus angle. Fuck me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
this happened to Neil Strauss as well. He did a complete cave-in, turn around. Yeah. I'm a terrible person, but it was a bit more intelligent.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm really glad you said what you said before. It's like, I just need to like, it's almost like you have to learn to forgive yourself for what you did. And that doesn't mean that it's okay or that you're excusing what you did, but you go like, okay, I can't keep beating myself up and hating myself. Finding Jesus isn't going to fix it. That's you just saying like, can you just wipe away everything bad I've done? I don't actually have to address it. I'm just going to pretend I didn't do it. Yeah. Yeah. Like
no, this is true.
Like, why didn't he then make some material about like, hey guys, here's how to do it better? Instead, he just said like, you're all sinful. Like you're all just like bad people and you shouldn't be having any kind of sex. Like just wait till marriage now.
It's like, so I don't know if you've read my book, but I've done some really bad stuff. I sexually assaulted someone when I was in my 20s. It was bad. It was very bad. So I write about that in the book and I'm like, this is how I learned. You don't do that shit because it feels shit. Like it feels shit for the person that does it as well.
Yeah.
And now let's it's sort of penance. Like if when we do this stuff, because we all do, because we're human beings, we then need to go, man, I fucked up. And then we need to do what we can to undo it. Right.
Yeah.
So I try and wear that and not pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah, that's a huge part of my website too. I've got an article called like it's you and me, not you versus me. And I talk about like you want to have like women on the same team, like all that kind of stuff. And I talked in that. I was like, Yeah, I used to be a bitter, jaded asshole. Like I got really deep into like I don't know if you know about like the red pill and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. I've done quite a bit of reading on that in cells and stuff, and how
yeah,
people get there. Because like we push guys there, and we do like there's some really shitty things that we teach dudes about what they have to do and what they have to live up to, where people end up there.
yeah.
It's fucked, man. So I don't know your story. It was about how you ended up in that predicament.
It was pretty much that. It was like I had all the. I say all the time that like the red pill is like a stepping stone. Like if you're too far in one direction, like I was in this direction where I thought women were just like perfect human beings, right? Like, and you probably like giggle at that. You're like, what are you talking about? Fucking perfect. Like, but I was literally like, women don't shit. They just like magical beings. Like they never do anything wrong. They don't fart. Like they're just everything they think is correct. It's like the most like imagine the pressure that I was putting on all the girls that I dated, right? Like literally
so
saying
bad.
you're perfect. I know, right? It's like
And
that's
they'd have to leave the
unfair,
room every time they wanted to like drop a fart.
but like literally, I just literally thought that they were perfect, and like, and so the red pill, I needed the red pill for a little bit to say like, no, 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 like women are not perfect, like they make mistakes, like. I also thought that men were evil and everything I did was bad, and that if I
No.
had sexual urges, I was like a bad person. And
The
like,
men are creepy thing, really shits me.
yeah, 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 for sure.
Yeah. I have a friend that I think you would really, really like. His name is Greg. He's the one that told me, he said to the same thing that you just said. Oh, I used to think that women were these amazing mythical creatures. And then I realized that women can be assholes too. And that's how I realized that women are people.
Yeah,
and he's
yeah.
he's a professional dom, and he does hardcore fucking shit, but he's the nicest old man you'll ever meet. And I feel like he's kind of like what I hope all dudes grow into in their 40s.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, we could get, why are we, oh my God, we got to just turn this off at some point. I swear
I'll
to
have
God.
to bail at
But
3,
like,
but this is a good chat.
okay,
I'm liking
good.
this
I'm
chat.
glad you have an out so that you can shut me up. But like, there's this, I don't know if you know, we could get so deep into like philosophy and stuff. There's like, do you know
Oh my
anything
God.
about like Carl Jung and stuff and like the idea of like the shadow inside you and like,
Oh, like shadow self shit? Like there's a stream of tantra that's called Shadowtantra that's like, it's like using BDSM to bring out your shadow side stuff. So you actually
like
will enact
maybe it's the
those.
same stuff.
Yeah,
Maybe.
sorry, you tell me. I'm totally cut you off there.
Well, the point of this is like, the shadow is like the bad side of like not even bad. It's like the part of you that's capable of like evil, if you know what I mean. And like you can't completely deny that part of you. You want that part because that's also the part that is like your strength. That's the part that if like your girlfriend or something is being threatened by some guy with a gun or whatever, you step in front of her and beat the shit out of him or something to protect her. Like that's your good. You have to have that capacity for violence. So then you can like protect yourself so that you can stand up for yourself so that you're not like a nice guy who just let himself get walked all over and become bitter and resentful and stuff. And so like the whole point of this Carl Jung thing is like, I think it's Jordan Peterson who talks about this, where he basically says like, what women want is a man who has that shadow inside him, but then he uses it for good. So like, same with like Dom, you want a guy who's capable of being like this crazy, like whatever she's into, right? But like this crazy, like, yeah, but then he's like the sweetest guy. He knows when to switch it off. And he's like, oh, you're not enjoying this anymore. Like, hey, come here, I'll give you a cuddle. Like, I want you to be having fun.
And that's the power. Like the power to be emotionally aware enough that you can bring out the bad stuff to play and then put it away again. Like that's a lot of power and a lot of control. And that's really sexy as well.
And I don't know, like if we should talk about, we could talk about this like when we do the actual podcast, but that for me has been the biggest like struggle. How do I communicate to guys who are like complete newbies, like how much fun BDSM is, but also make it clear, like, don't just jump straight in and start like slapping her across the face or something. Like you like, I think I do a pretty good job on, I've done a few podcasts and Imogen's done them with me where I say like, just start really gently, like literally just tap her on the butt and say, how does that feel? And like, just please don't do any more than that. Get the feedback, everything you do. How does that feel? Was that hot? Does that feel good? Does that turn you on? Like, is that driving you crazy? Like, do you like that? Do you want it harder? Do you want me to stop? Like that shit can be sexy. Like you talked about, you did a article, it was in like Sydney Morning Herald or something. Like, I don't know where, but like you talked about something like, consent can be sexy or something. And when I first read that, I was like, what is she talking about? And then I read it and I was like, oh, this is just like the shit that I do. Yeah. Like you're just getting feedback. Yeah.
I was going to say, have you played like traffic light game? Because that's a really good way to start with new people.
We've never freaking done that. And like, I know everyone says like, do the traffic light. And for me, I was always just like, nah, I don't need that. But like, I feel like I should at some point try it. And like, cause it's probably easier to teach that to people rather than what I'm trying to do, which is like, you ask for constant feedback. I feel like, you
I
know,
mean,
yellow, red, green, it's like easier.
some people
That's what you're
feel a
talking
bit
about, right?
silly, so you have to get
Yeah.
past that hurdle of feeling silly,
Yeah, but you make
saying
it
green,
fun.
orange, and red. But once you do, well, all you do is you take your hands off them, and then you're like, "Are you green?" And if they're too embarrassed to say green, you don't touch them until they say green. So you can sort of like
Okay.
be like, you know, until you learn to say green, I'm not doing shit to you, and
That's
then they
like the
learn really
best.
fast.
That's like the best freaking foreplay. And that's the kind of stuff that I like, where you're like integrating. I do that all the time, where guys will say, like, how do I talk dirty? And I'll say, like, you just like basically ask her, like, do you want me to keep going? And you do it in a way where, like, I'm not, you literally say, like, I'm not going to keep going until you like say you want me to. Like, you have to beg
And
me.
then you're
And
doing the
like,
fun power stuff, but
yeah,
you're also
yeah,
doing
for
the
sure.
consent stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
good.
I feel like that doesn't get talked enough. Like, there's too many just people who will go like full nerdy, especially with BDSM and stuff. And they'll be like, you must like directly say, do you consent? And it's like, do it in a sexy
not
way at
helpful.
least. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Because like
and
the
I'm
average
not.
person is not going to do that. And that's the issue.
No, and you can't tell them to be awkward. Although sex is awkward, and I like to go, look, it's going to be awkward the first few times, but I don't believe in, like, why give people all these things around sex that they're supposed to do that make it harder for everyone? You have to give them stuff that makes it easier, or
Yeah.
they won't do it.
It's
Yeah.
like, it's, I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically where like people will have it. I did a podcast on this the other day where it was like, men, we should all stop raping or something. And I had like, I got too emotional. So probably don't listen to that podcast because I was just like, I went off the rails, whatever. People
I
probably like
actually,
whenever.
I
Yeah,
don't do
go.
morality, so I don't come in and go, hey, you shouldn't rape people. I always do practicality, like, hey, like getting consent. It's not, I'm not saying you should do it, because if you don't, you're a bad person. I'm saying if you don't do it, you probably have shitty sex, and nobody wants
That's,
that.
I feel like, how come we're not best friends? Like, I'll just ask that question. Why the
Yeah, I
fuck are
think
we
you
not
might be
best
my
friends?
new favorite person. This is awesome.
Yeah. But like, I appreciate you saying that because I feel the same way. But like, as I said in this podcast, because the whole podcast was like this government website or something that just said like, guys, you should stop raping and don't put stuff in her drink and then rape her. And if she's unconscious, don't rape her. And if she's stopped by the side of the road,
Yeah.
don't rape her.
I've
And I
seen
was
that.
like, yeah. And I was like, this like reads like a parody. I get what you're trying to do. You're trying to end rape,
That's
but
not working.
you're not going to end rape. You're just going to make it
No.
worse. Like, because now anyone who's in a situation where they feel like shit, like, I don't know where, like, if you're even in that situation where you're like, should I have sex with her when she's drunk or should I not? Like, what you need is someone who's like empathetic and goes like, hey, like, you really can't be doing that. Think how she would feel. You don't want someone to just come in and say like, don't rape, you're a bad person. Because then he's just going to not actually come forward and ask for the advice. Like,
Well, then
you're
they just
helping
go,
less people.
well, I'm a male sexual predator. Like, people have been
Yeah.
telling me that men are creepy since I was a kid, and so what's
Yeah.
a bit more bad? Like,
Yeah.
once you
No,
cross that
yeah.
threshold, it doesn't work. Yeah.
There's a ton of that in the red pill. Like, there is a ton of that in the red pill. Guys who are just like, I've spent my whole life being told that I'm creepy and bad, and so do you know what? Fuck women. Now that I'm attractive, I'm just going to go out and use women because they've been using me. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, dude, like two
But they're
wrongs don't
still
make a right.
hurting.
Yeah,
And
but I
this
get
is
why they
the
do that.
thing.
It's because like no one empathized with them. No one said like, hey, like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sorry you went through that. You're not a bad person. You're not bad just because you're male.
You're allowed to be sexual. And like, again, and not saying that their behavior is okay, and I'll always come out against that. But then
Of
just
course.
to go, hey, like, man, I'm sorry you've been told this shit. I'm sorry you're in pain. I'm sorry you feel so insecure or worthless or feel like you're not measuring up. Like, all that shit is nasty
Yeah.
shit to put on guys.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of guys suffering. Like, and it's just, yeah, it breaks my heart at the same time as I go, oh my God, move away. Yeah.
Well, because, okay, here's how I like to think. Because I talked about this on that podcast where I talked about like, don't rape. And I used the example of like pedophiles. And I said, I get shitty when people have this like hate and vitriol towards pedophiles to the point where it becomes irrational. And they say like, I'm going to cut your dick off. You deserve to rot in hell. Like, I get that they've done something fucking evil. I get that.
Well,
but if you look into,
haven't.
yeah. And if you look into the statistics, like the vast majority of them, that happened to them as a child. And I'm not saying it's okay that they then go to repeat that. But the way you stop further is by empathizing with the fact that they went through it and saying like, that's really fucked up what you went through. I'm sorry. And you give them a hug and you say like, you know, this is fucked up. What happened to you? You can't then make it worse. Like, you know, think of that little child that you were and how hurt you were and how much this has fucked your life. You're doing the same to someone else. Like, this could end with you. You could stop this right now. But the way to do that is to come towards the light. And the only way you're going to do that is by talking about it and getting counseling and talking about your urges and being like vulnerable and saying, I want to.
Demonizing people doesn't help.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
because that
totally.
person's going to go and hide in the shadows, and then guess what? They're going to just sit there and go like, "Well, I can't fix this. No one will help me fix this. No one wants to talk about this to me. They all just say I'm
So I'm
evil."
just
So
gonna,
like, yeah, I'm just going to do it
yeah.
in secret. So now it happens in secret. At least if they're talking to someone, they can say, "Hey, I have these urges. There's this like, I don't know,
Mm,
freaking child that I'm in
yeah.
contact with. What can I do?" And you say
Help.
like, "Okay, let me help. Let me intervene. Like, we got to stop you hanging out with that child right now." Right fucking now. Let's make it easy for you, and then come to me for counseling, and let's fix
And
that.
this is
Imogen,
the
even
evil thing too. Like if
yeah,
we've like telling someone they're evil and then expecting them to not do bad things. And
that's
again,
like the
not saying the
dumbest
behavior's
fucking
okay. But it's not a good move. It's not going to work.
yeah. You're like
Yeah.
reinforcing it. You're literally saying you are a bad person, and they're gonna go, okay, well then, don't bad people do bad things? So why would I
Off
not
I
do
go.
this bad thing? Yeah,
Yeah.
like why?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. You didn't. It's not like reverse psycho. You didn't like trick me. Oh, I don't want to be a bad person. Okay, I better not do it. It's like I just don't get how people
Yeah.
don't like think this stuff through. It's like I get why they're doing it. They're trying to, as in like the government thing saying like don't rape and all that. They're trying to stop it. I get that they're trying to stop it, but it's like a surface level view
I
of the
don't think they're
problem.
trying. And I don't, because
Reckon?
they're
Because
targeting,
Imogen said that too. Imogen
it's
said
often
that too.
virtue signaling, like they're making a
Yeah,
statement to showing they're showing they take a stand, but they're not actually doing anything to help the problem. Because sometimes the thing that helps the problem is the thing that looks unpopular. Like
yeah,
decriminalize drugs, man. Jesus
yeah.
Christ, can we
Don't
just
even get
do
me
it?
started on that. Yeah, yeah,
Decriminalize sex work, for fuck's sake.
yeah.
But no one wants to do it because it looks unpopular. Whereas going, where we take a hard stance on drugs sounds good, bad effect. Taking a hard stance on child abuse, on domestic violence sounds good, but there's no, we're not doing anything to fix these problems. And it
Yeah.
just drives me absolutely nuts.
I
But
I had a friend. I had a friend who called like a domestic violence hotline. He's in the USA, and he said basically like immediately they just said like this hotline is only for women, and he's like, well
yeah,
then
it's
where do I
happened here
call?
too.
And like he couldn't find any.
There's
He
nowhere.
literally couldn't. And he's like, well, what
There's
do I
nowhere.
just like beat my wife? Like, and then you tell me I'm a bad
Until they
person?
lock me up.
Yeah, I'm trying to stop, and you're not helping me.
Yep, same in Australia. So the service in Australia, I know a story of at least one person who's called and said, I think I might be abusing my partner. And they're like, we can't help you. We're only for the people that are being abused. It's like, what?
Just like have a call with
Oh,
that, have a talk with. You're on the line. Just talk to them. Like just break protocol. Yeah, you'll probably get yelled at your by your boss or whatever. But like, who gives a shit? This is a human. Like I don't get why you wouldn't just say like, okay, like first of all, fucking good job calling. Fucking good job calling. You
yeah,
get a
yeah.
pat on the back,
Let's
and
work
nobody else is
something
going to
out.
give you. Yeah, we're going to fix this together. Like, thank you for
Yeah.
calling. Here's my like. Here's the call me again. Here's my name. Call me again if you have issues in the future. But like, let's sit
Yeah.
down and talk about this right now. Let's make sure you don't do this. You've called because you don't want to do this. I don't
And
want you
that's
to
the
do
most
this.
important bit. That's the
Yeah,
bit that normally you can't nail. People don't often go, shit, I don't want to sexually assault people anymore, or I don't want to beat my wife anymore. But
because you
if they do,
can't.
you want to fucking run with that.
Because you'll be a bad person if you say, hey, I have this problem or I'm about to do
Yeah.
this bad problem. People will go like, right, you're even thinking about it. That's like a thought crime. You're a bad person. Go to hell. Like,
Yeah.
you're bad.
Yeah.
And you're like,
And we
well, how am
need
I
to
supposed to
talk.
be better?
I suspect most people have, if not actually sexually assaulted anyone, have committed consent violations. I mean, I think we
For
probably all
sure.
have,
For
but
sure.
we're too
For
afraid
sure.
to actually talk about the times we fucked up because we're afraid that people will go, oh, you're in the sexual predator category now. And some people, like not just that it's shit, right? And it's not cool. We need to take responsibility, but we need to talk
Mhm,
about the fact that we do this stuff and that a lot of people
mhm.
do this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's this weird thing, isn't it? Same with, I'm glad you brought up domestic violence because both of those like do just get put into the category of if you ever even think about doing it once, you're a bad person immediately, and God help you if you ever actually do it once, go to hell, fuck you. Like
Yeah.
you're not part of society anymore. Like you don't get to, you're not here. We're all better. And then it's like
But that
you
doesn't
said,
work.
yeah, but like you said, everyone's done it before. Like, well, okay, maybe
Yeah.
not everyone's done,
Yeah.
but like, you know what I mean? Like everyone's come damn close.
Huge.
That's why I always say like, be very careful if you're gonna like be all righteous and hey, I'm better than you, I'm pious. It's like you better not have any skeletons in your closet. And I'm
course
yet to meet a
everyone
single person
does.
who's never fucked anything up ever, like ever. That's why I always
So
give second chances because I'm like, I'm a fuck up. I've made mistakes. I'm not gonna judge you.
also means we're going to miss our own shit. If we're like, oh, I'm a good
Yeah,
person, I never do those things, I get it right all the time. Then when you get it wrong, you're going to try and cover it up, of course,
yeah, yeah,
because that's your
yeah.
identity. So I like this is why I try and talk about fucking up all the time, and I try and talk about being a bad person or the thoughts I might have that are less than charitable, just to go, hey, everyone has this shit. Now here's what we do when they're here, as opposed to going, well, I'm a great person. And if you've ever had an angry thought towards someone you're dating, then you're clearly just shit and I can't help you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shit. We're gonna have to we're gonna have to wind it up, but that was a really good chat. Thank you.
I don't know how you feel. Would you be okay with me using this as like half a podcast or something?
Yeah,
and
totally.
Then, like,
I didn't say anything off the record.
Okay, and neither did I.
That was good.
I'm actually surprised. That was like, that's the weirdest like non-podcast podcast I've ever done. Like where it's just like, oh my God, I can't stop talking to you.
Once you get me started on this shit, I can talk about this is
me
my
too.
shit. So I can just keep going, you know? So like it would be, I think we've covered like 10 different topics or 15 different topics, but yeah, totally. Hang on to it.
Okay, if you don't mind, yeah. Like I'll call it just like an impromptu chat, and then I'll add an intro or something, and I'll say like, we're going to do a proper podcast. Like this was just like, we weren't supposed to record this, and it was just interesting enough that like, what the hell? Yeah, if you're cool with that.
Said anything, let me just think.
Do you want me to send
it
to you first, or you're fine?
Oh, if I could have a listen through, that'd be great, but I don't think so. I don't think I said anything that would have been off the record. I'm pretty sure it was good.
Yeah. And your audio actually held up reasonably okay, so.
What are the chances?
Yeah, I know.
But okay, I'm keen to do a big chat as well.
Me too, Jesus now. Like, I'm excited to come on your podcast, holy crap.
Oh, it's going to be great. Like, I haven't had a couple yet talk about this stuff. I think you guys will be absolutely perfect.
We'll try and do a good job, yeah.
Oh, you'll be great. It's pretty cash. So basically, we get someone on, we have a big rant. Usually we get off topic and start talking about random shit. I'll usually say a few things I later regret. Like, it's pretty laid back.
Okay, that sounds really good. I'll book in, I'll organize, like, I'll send you an email and we'll.
Yeah, sweet as. And really nice to talk anyway.
No, you too. Like, holy crap. I feel like I found the female version of me, like, as a podcaster and as, like, yeah.
We'll have to compare notes because, I reckon.
Yeah, for sure.
Good stuff. All right, have a good Alvo.
I'll send you that email.
Drop
You
me
too.
an email. We'll sort it out.
I will. See ya.